Hi and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons teaching. It's great to be back with you all. Today we are discussing David's unique therapy model, the Golden Thread process, which is based on his 40 years of practice as a therapist and also a Taoist monk. Now, have you ever been stuck on an emotional carousel of stress, anxiety, or self-doubt, and you just don't know why? Well, today you'll learn why emotional stress and triggers are not your enemy, but in fact are profound messages pointing you to a deeper inner truth. We'll be sharing how you can use the Golden Thread process to transform emotional pain into clarity and inner conflict into peace. Okay, David, what is the Golden Thread process and how did it come about?
Well, it starts off with one of our three fundamentals. And this is very important for you as you listen to these words, to think whether you agree. You are the creator of your emotions. You are not the victim. Now, let me clarify. I am not saying you shouldn't create emotions. I'm saying the opposite. Emotions are natural and normal and part of us being a human being. But emotions do not float around the room and attack us. Or other people do not make us feel any way. And this is where a lot of my clients get confused. We create our emotions, and those emotions might be appropriate and correct, and the correct emotions for that situation. And the Golden Thread process is a way to discover whether the emotion is appropriate, and you are taking full responsibility and full accountability for that emotion.
So I know there's a big thing in the Golden Thread process about the importance of emotions, and yet the teaching is it's not about the emotions. They're the kind of starting point, and that emotions are not random. As you say, they don't just float around the room and attack you, but they have a purpose. Yes. Tell me a little bit more about this thing about emotions having a purpose.
So that's how, over the years, Alex, that's why I prefer not to give them a name such as anxiety, stress. I prefer just to call them a red light feeling. And if you just do that, you'll immediately find an improvement. Rather than saying, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, just say, I am now creating a red light feeling. And just saying that will take some of the pressure off you, because the next question is, why? And there's the golden thread. Why am I creating this red light feeling? And this is where a lot of my clients, when they're doing this work, because this is a work you can do for yourself, you don't need a therapist, it's very simple to do. The question is, I am creating this emotion. It could be appropriate, it could be absolutely the right emotion. But why am I creating it? What is the thought? And even deeper, what is the belief that I hold? And you normally find these deep-seated beliefs go right back into childhood. And that's what the golden thread does. So the emotion, the red light, is like the door opening.
Yeah.
The golden thread is like reverse engineering, as you said once, following the breadcrumbs to the belief.
And so this is really gets to the heart of the Golden Thread process, saying that emotions are not the cause of all our problems, all our emotional turmoil. They are the consequence. And this is, it's about acknowledging the emotions, but then we need to really spend time following this golden thread down to the patterns of thinking, self-talk, and the deeper beliefs, as you say, often those core beliefs that are set as a foundation in our childhood experiences.
And the kind of the analogy I use for this, if you were driving your car and the red light came on the dashboard of your car and you drove into the garage and the mechanic says, don't worry, I'll fix that in 2 ticks. Let me unscrew the bulb. There you go, the red light has gone now. You wouldn't move your car because the red light is telling you there's something deeper. There's something you need to look at. So the red light, as you said in your introduction, the red light is the messenger. It's giving you the warning sign that there's something in your thinking or your belief needs your urgent attention. You are misaligned in your belief system. And if you do not go and correct that misalignment or understand that misalignment, then the red light will be triggered. I hate that word, but I'm going to use it. Will be triggered in different circumstances because your beliefs are perceptions of you are interpreting that circumstance that you see.
I mean, David, this it sounds very practical and I like the kind of step-by-step nature of it. And also the fact that I know, obviously, you've worked with thousands of clients over the years. It works. It's very solution focused. Yes. It's about not sitting in the emotions and going round and round in circles in the emotions. But there are many modern therapy models out there nowadays that are practical and solution focused. What I guess makes the golden thread process different is that it is infused with a spirituality. It is infused with Taoist principles. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
That's absolutely right, Alex. But when we use the word spirituality, I do not want you to think this is a religious model or anything to do with outside of you. We're not talking about angels. We're not talking about magic. We're not talking about supernatural. We're talking about what's natural. Because when you follow the golden thread down to the core, you will sometimes come, or nearly always, to be honest, come to the three lies. I'm not good enough, I can't cope, or I'm unlovable, or I'm unworthy. And what that shows you in the spirituality is you have created a separation from what I call Shen, from your natural spiritual self. You are now beginning to doubt yourself. I'm not good enough. I spend hours with my clients trying to explain, what does that mean? What does that statement even mean? Not good enough for what? Not good enough for whom? Who's given you that diagnosis? Why have you accepted? I can't cope. This is ridiculous because you've always coped. You're a coping machine. You always will cope. It's in your nature. I'm unlovable or I'm unworthy. Again, this doesn't make sense. And what you're doing is you're creating a separation because you're saying that I, as a spiritual being, I believe I'm unworthy. Again, unworthy for what? Unworthy for whom? Who's giving you that diagnosis? Why have you accepted that diagnosis? Do you believe that a newborn is not worthy? Do you believe a newborn baby has to achieve something to become worthy? Or do you believe, as I often say in these videos, the midwife holds up a newborn baby, still attached to the umbilical cord, looks around the room and says, quick, somebody give this baby some worth. You'd laugh. The baby has innate, inherent worth and value, and so do you. But if you confuse that, that is what the red light is pointing to you. That spirituality, that core of who you really are, your essence, your innate value and your worth that nobody can add to by giving you compliments and no one can take away by criticizing, comparing or being judgmental. It is out of other people's controls because it's your birthright. That's your spirituality. And that's why this model is different, because we have to get to that core. When you say to yourself, there's something wrong with me, or there's something missing in me, that's wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing missing as with you. You wasn't born without value or without worth. Whatever anybody else has said to you during your life, they can't take away your birthright.
And David, for me, this is what I love so much about the golden thread process, the simplicity of the message and the guiding force behind it is that 99.9% of the time, if you find yourself or if you notice yourself experiencing a red light emotion of anxiety, stress, self-doubt, anger, hopelessness, whatever it is, it's a signpost. It's a really useful practical signpost to telling you, chances are you are separated from your truth because you're doubting yourself, you're believing you're not good enough, because you're believing you're not lovable, because you're believing you can't cope. And that separation is denying our worth and value, which, we're here on earth to experience and to live in our own truth, our own value, our own worth. And every moment that we separate from that, that's a disservice to who we are. And the message is, if we can acknowledge that, see the emotions for what they are, and then examine them, get down to the beliefs which are denying that truth, and readjust, which is what we do as part of with the golden thread process, we can then start to experience green light feelings, inner peace, bliss, joy, love, contentment, exhilaration. And they then are also signposts telling us we've reconnected to the truth. We've reconnected to our spirituality. We've reconnected to our true worth.
Everything you said there, I 100% agree with. So as you're listening to this, even if you hear these words and in your mind you are saying something like, it can't be that easy, or you experience a resistance to this process, which is very straightforward. What do you believe? Why do you believe it? How can it be more straightforward than that? So, as you just explained, the emotions are the consequence of a belief. So we don't need to talk about the emotion. We need to talk about the belief. So it can't be any simpler. So what is that resistance? And that resistance is what I call the part of your psyche that I call the inner child. Now, the inner child will hold on to a misaligned belief, knowing that it doesn't work, knowing that it's not going to be successful, but holding on to it because it's familiar. It's known. It has a sense of certainty. Even though the certainty is a negative outcome, that part of your psyche called the inner child, which was formed around the ages of 6 to 9 years old, that part of your mind sees that, I believe misguidedly, as somehow safe, protection. You're certain. And then the inner child part of your mind puts you on what I call the carousel of despair that you identified at the beginning. Why is it I'm always stressed? And then when I deal with my stress, I'm anxious. Then I can't sleep. Then this, then that. This is the carousel of despair. You're going round and round on the surface of the consequences, the emotions. And you become an expert at discussing your emotions. And that's why I would say, if you take one thing away from this session, stop calling them a name, call them red light feelings. Now, right away, that part of your psyche will not like that. It will fight against that because it's losing its grip. Yeah. And because then you say, why am I creating this red light emotion? And when you go down the thread, I worked with a client just yesterday, second session, and she said, I can't do this golden thread, David. And I said, why? And we went through it. She started, I am anxious. Okay, why do you create anxiousness? And then she said, because I'm overwhelmed. Do you see what the inner child has done? It's given them another emotion. Mm-hmm. It's not telling you why you create anxiousness. Yeah. It's giving another emotion. So the inner child part of your mind does not want you to get down to the core.
Because the language that the inner child communicates in and the language that the inner child finds safe and wants to sit within is the emotions. And that's why the golden thread process encourages you to move away from the surface level emotions. So acknowledge them at the top level, but then don't kind of just, as you say, dart around from I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling hopeless, I'm stressed, and stay in that zone. Yes. It encourages you to then dig deeper to what are you thinking right now, not what are you feeling, and then what are you believing. That's so right. Moving the narrative of how we do this self-inquiry process. Really, I know with your clients, you guide them through this, but this can be done by ourselves, from I feel to I think to I believe.
And that's all it is, Alex.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. When you're doing the golden thread process and you start at the first feeling, I'm stressed. So I'm now creating this red light that I want to call stress. Then the next question is, why? Why are you creating stress? And stay on the facts. Don't go back to a feeling. So on this client, like yesterday, when she realized, and she said, this is what she said, well, feeling overwhelmed is not a feeling. I said, listen to what you've just said, because I let my clients record the sessions. Feeling overwhelmed is not a feeling. Of course it's a feeling. Why do you create overwhelm? And when we got down to the golden thread, it's because she doesn't want to step off into what she considers the unknown, the uncertain. Although she knows this circle that is absolutely almost destroying her life, is not working for her, it's creating problems in her relationships, in her family, in her career. You know what? It's somehow comfortable in the familiarity. And the part of your mind that I call the inner child will fight against that, Alex, will do everything it can because it doesn't want to know the other way. And this is what she said to me. She said, well, better the devil you know.
Yeah.
And I said, well, there's no devils here. There are no devils here. It's just a belief. It's just a belief. And we live in the unknown. We live in uncertainty. This is our home. No one knows. No one can look into the future. No one. It's impossible. This is where you've always lived. And now this is perhaps the belief that she'll go away, and if she needs to speak to me again, perhaps that's the belief she needs to understand and accept. I'm going to give you a very important teaching. You cannot change a belief unless you understand it, understand why you've created the belief, what it's doing for you, what is the perceived benefit, and then accept. Accept that either it's correct, and you would teach this to your child, or it's incorrect, and then you have to change it.
And David, I think a lot of people may come to our channel or listen to our podcast and think, okay, well, this is supposed to be about Taoism, or this is supposed to be about spirituality. Why are they talking so much about the inner child, which in modern parlance is, it's a fairly new therapy concept in recent decades. But in essence, the inner child is just a label for that part of our mind, our ego, that was usually beliefs were formed in childhood because of childhood experiences, often traumatic childhood experiences. But in essence, it's this inner child within our mind, within our psyche, that creates resistance, that won't accept, that doesn't want to step out of its comfort zone. And almost that it's the inner child part of us that is the block that stops us from living in flow, that stops us from experiencing green light emotions, that stops us from connecting to our true authentic selves and true spirituality and living our lives to our greatest potential. So that's why when you do the golden thread process with clients and when we guide people on our teachings, so much as it focuses on having a conversation with the inner child, understanding the inner child, and reparenting the inner child.
Yes, that's very important. So the first part of your question is, what's this got to do with Taoism? And one of the core teachings of Taoism is what's called oneness, that there can be no separation, that we are one. Mind, body, and spirit would be a modern way to describe this. We are not a part of us, one part, and then another part, and another part. So when we're doing the golden thread, what we're trying to do is to create a oneness where the inner child, part of our mind, as you say, the psyche, the ego, the subconscious mind, whatever you want to call it, the part that was formed in childhood rejoins into the oneness. If you can picture the yin-yang sign, We have the yin and the yang. The center line is Wu Wei. But if you look at the whole of the symbol, that circle, that represents oneness. And if you haven't got the oneness, that's what the red light is telling you. You've created a misalignment. You are separate. And that's why, really at the basis, and what makes this model so different to a therapy model, at the basis of this becomes a true understanding about you, your spirituality. As I said before, do you believe, and this is a question that you can ponder, do you believe that children, whether they're born to a millionaire or whether they're born under a bush, does that child have inherent worth and value? Is it innate? Is it their birthright? Or do they have to go and do something to get it? Or does somebody give it to them like a commodity? Or do they already have it? If you've been lucky enough to have your own child, think about when you first saw that child, was the first thing that come into your mind is, we better go and give it some worth? Or did you just melt to appreciate that spiritual awareness that this child is so full of worth, so full of love, so full of everything? And then why would we create a separation from what we are? Because that's you, that's me, that's us, that's who we are. That's not something somebody gives to us. That's our nature. Now, then, as you say, as we grow up, as we're trying to learn, we get influenced now by societal needs, by what our family teach, by perhaps something happens at school. And then as a child, because we haven't got the full appreciation, the full understanding, we're still in a childlike mode of thinking, we start to doubt ourselves and we believe somebody else. We then look for somebody else to give us appreciation. We look to be in the in crowd. We look for our teachers to come and pat us and say, good girl, haven't you done well? And then we start to value that more than we value ourselves. And this is really what this teaching is about. And even in this modern world, look on social media, you see them looking for likes and ticks and smiles and appreciation, always looking. And it's like that idea, I always have this idea come into my mind about the donkey chasing the carrot. The carrot's just dangling in front of it. And they're chasing something that they've already got, but they don't accept.
Yeah, wonderful, David. And we have a whole long form video playlist on the Golden Thread process, which kind of comes at understanding it from different directions and also offers you some practical advice and tips on how you can begin the Golden Thread process. So, as we said, it's a supremely profound spiritual model about reconnecting to
But very simple
and very practical. This idea of self-inquiry, of identifying the emotions, asking the why question. Why am I experiencing this red light emotion?
Can I just say something just to help you if you want to try this? So you experience a red light, call it a red light, then ask yourself, why am I creating this red light? The next word you should say in answer to that question is because.
Yeah.
I am creating this red light because. And that will keep you firmly on the golden thread. What you have to do is to be very mindful, like my client, that the inner child will not want you to go down the golden thread. So it will give you as much resistance, it will give you a headache, it won't want you to do it, or mostly it will give you another emotional feeling.
Yeah.
We're not interested in emotional feelings. We start at the emotional feelings. We acknowledge the emotional feelings. I am now creating an intense red light feeling. Your next question is why? Your next answer, because it's like question and answer. In fact, as you say, I recommend you do this. Get a piece of A4 paper, put a line down the center, and then question on one side, and then because on the other side. I'm creating this red light feeling because I don't believe I'm good enough. Why don't you believe you're good enough? I don't believe I'm good enough because You see, and that gets you down the golden thread.
And to answer with because I think, because I believe, or because I choose, not because I feel.
Exactly.
So we start with the emotions, but then we quickly move off them.
I see the emotion as the opening door to the thread. You walk through the door, and then we don't need to talk about emotions anymore. We just need to talk about what you believe.
Great. Thank you, David. So I hope this teaching has helped you understand that emotions, experiencing red-light emotions, do not mean you are flawed. It's just a really kind of positive signpost to something deep within you, in your belief system, that needs to be looked at, reflected on, and adjusted so that you can truly reconnect to your value and potential. I really hope you've enjoyed the teaching. Please do let us know. Maybe share your experiences of doing the Golden Thread Process model, or ask us your questions, and maybe share the teaching with someone else who you think it may also benefit. David works every week one-to-one with clients all over the world, using the Golden Thread process, doing the inner child work with his clients via Zoom. If you'd like to learn more about David's one-to-one consultations, I will put a link to those in the show notes. And David is also writing a new Substack blog. So I've put a link in the show notes to subscribe to his free blog, where there's multiple new posts every week to help you, guide you on your journey. We look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye-bye.